The message came on a quiet Tuesday morning. It appeared on every television screen, every radio station, and every phone on Earth at the same time. People stopped what they were doing and watched. Children in schools looked up at their classroom screens. Workers in offices stood frozen at their desks. Farmers in their fields heard the strange voice coming from their truck radios. The creature on the screen was tall and gray. It had 4 eyes that glowed with a cold yellow light. When it spoke, its voice was deep and smooth, speaking perfect English that it had learned from watching human broadcasts for years. "People of Earth," the creature said, "I am High Commander Vorath of the Velthari Dominion. We rule 17 star systems. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Today, we have found yours." Admiral Kira Lawson watched the broadcast from the United Nations Emergency Command Center in Geneva. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had served in the military for 30 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The alien continued speaking. "You are a small species on a small world. You have barely left your own planet. You are nothing compared to the Velthari Dominion. But we are fair. We give you a choice." Kira felt her hands form into fists at her sides. "You have 30 days, Vorath said. In 30 days you will surrender. You will destroy all your ships that can travel in space. You will accept your place as workers in our empire. If you do not do this, we will burn your world until nothing lives on it. This is not a request. This is not a discussion. This is what will happen." The screen showed a view of space. 2,000 alien warships floated in the darkness, just past Mars. Each ship was larger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons that glowed with strange energy. "You cannot fight us," Vorath said. "You cannot run from us. You can only obey or die. We will wait for your answer." The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one in the command center spoke. Secretary General Daniel Murphy was a small man with tired eyes. He had been dealing with problems between nations for 20 years, but this was something different. This was not a problem between countries. This was a problem for the entire human race. "What do we have?" he asked quietly. General Catherine Drake pulled up a display showing Earth's space defenses. There were 47 armed satellites floating around the planet. There were 12 ships that could fight in space. The largest was the carrier Independence, which could hold 50 small fighters. "Against 2,000 alien warships," Catherine said, "we have almost nothing. Their technology is hundreds of years more advanced than ours. Their smallest scout ship could probably destroy our entire fleet." The room fell silent again. Kira could see the fear on people's faces. These were the most powerful leaders on Earth, and they looked like children facing a monster in the dark. "Then we surrender?" someone asked. "No." Everyone turned to look at the old man sitting in the corner. Dr. Samuel Green was 82 years old. His hair was white and thin. His hands shook slightly when he moved them, but his eyes were bright and sharp, full of a fire that age had not dimmed. Samuel ran a secret project called Lighthouse. Very few people knew what he was working on. The government gave him money and left him alone, trusting that whatever he was building would be important someday. Today was that day. "We do not surrender," Samuel said again, standing up slowly. His joints made small popping sounds as he moved. "We fight." Catherine shook her head. "Doctor, with respect, you saw the numbers. We cannot win a battle against those ships." "I did not say we would fight a battle," Samuel replied. He walked to the main display and touched a few buttons. New images appeared on the screen. They showed blueprints and designs that no one in the room had ever seen before. "For 15 years, I have been preparing for something like this," Samuel explained. "Not because I knew aliens would come, but because I knew that someday humanity would face a threat that seemed impossible to defeat. I wanted us to be ready. He pointed at the first design. It showed a strange engine that seemed to fold space around itself. This is a jump drive. It can move a ship from one place to another instantly, without crossing the space between. We have never tested it on a full-size ship. It might work. It might tear the ship apart. But if it works, we can appear right next to their command ship before they know we are coming. He pointed at the second design. It showed a weapon that looked like a long metal tube covered in wires and lights. This is a focused energy beam that can cut through any material we have tested. Again, we have never used it in real combat. But if it works, it can punch through their armor. Secretary General Murphy stared at the designs. You built all this in secret? I built the plans in secret, Samuel corrected. The actual devices are still in pieces in my laboratory. But we have 30 days. With every factory on Earth working together, with every scientist and engineer helping, we might be able to build something that can hurt them. Kira stepped forward. Even if these weapons work, we still only have a handful of ships against thousands. Samuel smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a chess player who had been planning his moves for a very long time. We do not need to destroy their entire fleet, he said. We only need to make them afraid. The Velthari have been conquering weak species for centuries. They do not know what it is like to fight someone who refuses to give up. They do not know what humans are capable of when we are pushed into a corner. He looked around the room at the gathered leaders. We will probably lose. Most of us will probably die. But we will make them pay for every inch of space they take. We will make them bleed. And maybe, just maybe, we will make them decide that Earth is not worth the cost. General Drake was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. What do you need? Everything, Samuel answered. Every resource, every person, every idea. The Velthari gave us 30 days. Let us show them what humanity can build in 30 days. That night, the world changed. Old enemies became allies. Countries that had fought each other for centuries now worked together. Factories that made cars started making weapons. Universities that taught students started teaching soldiers. Every person on Earth understood that they were fighting for their survival. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would simply give up. They did not understand that humans had been fighting impossible odds since the beginning of their history. They did not know that the most dangerous thing in the universe was a human with nothing left to lose. The clock was ticking. 30 days to build a miracle. 30 days to save the world. The work began. 20 days remained before the deadline. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, in a facility that did not officially exist, the greatest project in human history was taking shape. Lieutenant Commander Nicole Harris walked through the underground complex, checking on each section of the massive operation. She was 34 years old, with dark skin and brown eyes that never seemed to rest. Before the aliens came, she had been in charge of a small research team studying advanced propulsion systems. Now she was coordinating thousands of scientists and engineers from every country on Earth. The facility stretched for miles underground. It had been built decades ago to survive a nuclear war, but now it served a different purpose. Every room was filled with people working, building, testing. The air hummed with the sound of machines and the voices of workers speaking dozens of different languages. Nicole stopped at the main laboratory, where Dr. Patricia Webb was leading a team studying the alien technology. Patricia was a small woman with messy red hair and glasses that always seemed to be sliding down her nose. She had not slept in 3 days, but her hands were steady as she pointed at the data on her screen. We captured some sensor readings during the alien transmission, Patricia explained. Their shields work by rotating through different energy frequencies. Our normal weapons cannot get through because the shield changes faster than our weapons can adapt. Nicole nodded. Can't we build something that changes faster? Maybe. Patricia pulled up a new diagram. We are working on a weapon that fires multiple frequencies at the same time. If we hit them with enough different types of energy, their shields cannot block all of it. Some of our attacks will get through. How long until it is ready? Patricia pushed her glasses up her nose. We need at least 12 more days of testing. But if we skip some safety steps, we might have a working model in 8 days. Nicole did not hesitate. Skip the safety steps. We do not have time to be careful. She moved on to the next section, the construction hangar where Chief Engineer Marcus Cole was building their secret weapon. Marcus was a large man with thick arms and a bald head covered in grease stains. He had spent his life building things, from simple engines to the most advanced spacecraft humanity had ever created. But he had never built anything like this. The ship sat in the center of the hangar, surrounded by scaffolding and workers. It was ugly. There was no other word for it. The hull was a patchwork of different metals bolted together. Wires and tubes hung from every surface. It looked like someone had taken apart 100 different machines and smashed them all together. It is not pretty, Marcus admitted when he saw Nicole looking at it. But if it works, it will change everything. Will it work? Marcus wiped his hands on his already dirty shirt. The jump drive is based on Dr. Green's designs. In theory, it creates a bubble of folded space around the ship and moves the bubble to a new location. The ship never actually travels through space. It just appears somewhere else. In theory, Nicole repeated. In theory, Marcus agreed. We have tested small versions on objects the size of a basketball. They appeared exactly where we wanted them to. But we have never tested it on something this big with people inside. There is a chance the drive might work perfectly. There is also a chance the ship might be turned inside out, or scattered across several light years of empty space, or simply disappear forever. Nicole looked at the ugly, beautiful ship. And people are volunteering to fly it? Marcus pointed at a list of names on his clipboard. We have over 200 volunteers. All of them know the risks. All of them want to be the first humans to punch an alien in the face. Despite everything, Nicole smiled. That was the thing about humans. Tell them something was impossible, and they would line up to prove you wrong. She walked to the deepest level of the facility, to a room that required 3 different security checks to enter. This was where Dr. Samuel Green worked on his most secret project. The old scientist was sitting at a simple desk, writing notes on paper with a pencil. In a facility filled with the most advanced technology on Earth, he preferred to work the old way. Doctor, Nicole said, how is the protocol coming along? Samuel looked up. His eyes were tired but calm. It is ready. I hope we never have to use it. Nicole knew what the Prometheus protocol was. It was humanity's final option, the last card they could play if everything else failed. If the Valkyrie could not be stopped, if humanity was about to be wiped out, the protocol would ensure that the aliens paid the highest possible price for their victory. How does it work? She asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. Samuel set down his pencil. Our sun is a star. Stars are massive nuclear reactors, carefully balanced between the force of gravity pushing inward and the force of nuclear fusion pushing outward. The protocol disrupts that balance. It would cause our sun to expand rapidly, destroying everything in the inner solar system. Nicole felt cold. Including Earth, and including any alien fleet close enough to be caught in the blast. Samuel's voice was quiet. If we cannot save our world, we can at least make sure the Valkyrie never take it. We can make them understand that attacking humanity has a cost they cannot afford to pay. That is insane. Yes, Samuel agreed. But sometimes insanity is the only rational choice. The Velthari have conquered hundreds of worlds. If we simply let them destroy us, they will move on to the next species without a second thought. But if we show them that humans will destroy themselves rather than surrender, they will think twice before attacking any other species. Our death might save countless others. Nicole stood in silence for a long moment. She thought about her parents in Chicago, her sister in New York, her friends scattered across the world. She thought about all the people who were working day and night to save their planet, not knowing that there was a plan to destroy it if they failed. Let us hope it does not come to that, she finally said. Samuel nodded. That is why we are building the other weapons first. The Prometheus Protocol is the last option, not the first. We will fight with everything we have before we even consider using it. Nicole left the secret room and walked back through the facility. Everywhere she looked, she saw people working together. Chinese engineers helped American scientists. Russian soldiers stood guard alongside Japanese troops. For the first time in history, humanity was truly united. They were united by fear, yes, but also by hope. Hope that they could build something to save themselves. Hope that the creativity and stubbornness that had carried humans through ice ages and plagues and world wars would carry them through this 20 days remained. The ship was taking shape. The weapons were being tested. The plan was coming together. Somewhere beyond Mars, 2,000 alien warships waited, confident in their power, certain of their victory. They had no idea what was coming. 15 days before the deadline, the Velthari decided to send a message. High Commander Varath had been watching the humans carefully. His spies had intercepted their communications. His sensors had detected increased activity on their world. The primitive species was building something, preparing something. Varath found this amusing rather than concerning. They are like insects trying to fight a storm, he told his officers. But perhaps they need a reminder of what they face. Send the 3rd Scout Squadron to destroy their orbital station. Let them see their people die. That should help them understand their situation. 12 Velthari warships broke away from the main fleet and headed toward Earth. Each ship was a sleek black triangle, 200 meters long, armed with plasma cannons that could melt through steel like butter. Against the human space station and its tiny escort of patrol vessels, they expected no resistance at all. Captain Benjamin Torres was on board the carrier Independence when the alert came. Benjamin was 41 years old, a career military officer who had spent 20 years preparing for a war he never thought would come. He had dark hair going gray at the temples and a scar on his chin from a training accident years ago. 12 enemy vessels approaching the International Space Station, his tactical officer reported. They will arrive in 2 hours. Benjamin looked at the display showing their available forces. 8 ships, including Independence, and 7 smaller vessels. Against 12 alien warships, it was a death sentence. But the space station had over 100 people on board, scientists and astronauts from a dozen countries who had refused to leave their posts. All ships, prepare for combat, Benjamin ordered. We are going to buy the station as much time as we can. The human fleet moved to intercept the alien squadron. They formed a loose formation, spreading out to make themselves harder to hit. It was a tactic from ancient naval warfare, adapted for the empty darkness of space. Lieutenant Diana Reyes piloted one of the small fighter craft launched from Independence. Diana was 26 years old, the youngest pilot in the fleet. She had grown up in Texas, dreaming of flying among the stars. Now her dream had become a nightmare, but she refused to back down. All fighters, stay mobile, came the order over her radio. Do not fly in straight lines. Do not give them easy targets. Hit them and move. Hit them and move. The 2 fleets met in the space between Earth and the Moon. The Velthari opened fire first. Brilliant green plasma bolts streaked across the void, each one powerful enough to vaporize a small ship. The destroyer Valiant took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of orange fire. In seconds, 50 human lives were gone, but the humans did not retreat. They scattered and attacked, their smaller ships weaving through the alien formation like angry hornets. Their weapons were weaker, but they fired faster, aiming not at the heavily armored hulls, but at the sensors and weapon systems on the surface. Diana dove toward one of the alien scouts, her targeting computer screaming warnings as enemy weapons tracked her movement. She fired a burst at the ship's main sensor array, then pulled away in a tight spiral that would have killed her if not for the special suit she wore that kept the blood flowing to her brain. The alien ship's sensors flickered and died. For a few precious seconds, it was blind. Another human fighter took advantage and put a missile directly into its engine ports. The scout ship shuddered and began to drift, its propulsion system damaged beyond repair. "One down," Diana whispered. But there were still 11 more. The battle continued for 4 hours. The Valkyrie had never experienced anything like it. Their tactical computers were designed to predict enemy movements based on rational calculations of survival. But the humans were not fighting rationally. They were taking risks that no logical species would take, sacrificing themselves to create openings for their allies. Captain Torres watched from the Bridge of Independence as the destroyer Defiance took 3 hits and kept fighting. Its hull was breached in a dozen places, air leaking into space, but its weapons kept firing until the last possible moment. When the evacuation order finally came, only half the crew made it to the escape pods, but Defiance had destroyed 2 enemy scouts before it died. And its sacrifice had allowed another human ship to get behind the alien formation and attack from an unexpected angle. By the end of the 4th hour, the Valkyrie had lost 6 ships. 4 destroyed completely, 2 damaged so badly they could not continue fighting. The remaining 6 scouts turned and retreated toward the main fleet, their weapons silent, their crews shocked into disbelief. The humans had lost 3 ships and over 200 lives. The space station was damaged, but still standing. It was not a victory. In pure numbers, the humans had lost more than they had destroyed. But in another sense, it was the greatest victory humanity had ever achieved. Admiral Kira Lawson watched the battle footage in the command center on Earth. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were trembling. "They can be hurt," she said quietly. "They can be killed. They are not invincible." Dr. Samuel Green stood beside her, making notes on his tablet. The Valkyrie have been fighting weak species for centuries. They have forgotten what it is like to face an enemy who fights back. They do not know how to handle an opponent who attacks even when there is no logical chance of winning. What will they do now? Samuel considered the question. They will study this battle. They will try to understand why their tactics failed. But I do not think they will find an answer they like. The answer is that humans are simply willing to die in ways that do not make sense to them. We do not surrender when the numbers say we should. We do not run when logic tells us to retreat. The news of the battle spread across Earth. People who had been afraid suddenly found hope. If 8 ships could hurt 12 alien vessels, what could 100 ships do? What could 1,000? In the secret facility beneath Nevada, the workers doubled their efforts. The ugly ship that would carry humanity's hopes was almost complete. The weapons were almost ready. The plan was almost finished. Lieutenant Diana Reyes returned to Independence, her fighter scarred by near misses, her body exhausted, but her spirit unbroken. When she climbed out of the cockpit, the deck crew was waiting for her. They applauded, not because she had done something extraordinary, but because she had come back alive. How was it out there? One of the mechanics asked. Diana thought about the friend she had lost, the ship she had seen explode, the terror she had felt when enemy weapons tracked her movements. She thought about the moment when everything seemed hopeless, and she had kept fighting anyway. "We showed them who we are," she said, "and they did not like it." 15 days remained. The aliens had learned that humanity would not go quietly. Now both sides prepared for the real battle, the one that would decide the fate of an entire world. The first blood had been drawn, but there was much more to come. 5 days remained before the deadline. High Commander Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and stared at Earth through the main viewing screen. The small blue world hung in the darkness of space, beautiful and fragile. In 5 days, it would either surrender or burn. But for the first time in his long career, Vorath felt something he had not experienced in decades: doubt. The battle with the human patrol ships had shaken him. 6 of his scouts destroyed or disabled by primitive vessels with inferior weapons. His tactical officers had written reports explaining what went wrong, blaming the losses on bad luck, unexpected human tactics, and minor equipment failures. But Vorath knew the truth. The humans had simply refused to die when they were supposed to. Increase surveillance of their communications. He ordered his intelligence chief. "I want to know everything they are building. I want to know every ship they have, every weapon they are making, every plan they are considering." The reports that came back disturbed him even more. Human factories were working day and night, producing weapons and ships at a pace that seemed impossible. Countries that had been enemies for centuries were now sharing their most secret technologies. Scientists from different nations were working together, combining their knowledge to create things that had never existed before. And there were signals that his linguists could not decode. Encrypted messages that changed their patterns every hour. Communications that bounced between satellites and ground stations in ways that made them impossible to trace. Most troubling of all were the bounced between satellites and ground stations in ways that made them impossible to trace. Most troubling of all were the transmissions aimed at deep space. The humans were sending messages beyond their solar system, using frequencies and methods that suggested they were trying to contact someone. But who? And why? "High Commander," his intelligence chief reported, "we have detected unusual activity at a facility in the human territory called Nevada. Large amounts of resources are being moved underground. Energy readings suggest they are building something powerful, but we cannot determine what it is." Vorath studied the data on his screen. "Can we destroy the facility from orbit?" "Yes, but such an attack before the deadline would violate the terms of our ultimatum. It might cause political problems with the Dominion Council." Vorath waved his hand dismissively. "Political problems are for politicians. We are warriors. But very well, we will wait. Whatever the humans are building, it cannot change the outcome. They are still a single world against a fleet of 2,000 ships." He turned away from the viewing screen. "Prepare the fleet for the final assault. If they do not surrender in 5 days, we will destroy their cities one by one until nothing remains." On Earth, Commander Nicole Harris led the final briefing for Operation Defiance. The underground command center was packed with military leaders, scientists, and political leaders from every major nation. Everyone looked tired but determined. "The Valkyrie expect us to meet them in a conventional battle," Nicole explained, pointing at a large display showing the enemy fleet formation. "They are positioned in a standard siege pattern, with their 2,000 ships arranged in a sphere around their 3 command vessels. The High Commander's flagship is in the exact center. How do we fight 2,000 ships?" General Catherine Drake asked. "Even with everything we have built, we cannot match those numbers." "We are not going to fight 2,000 ships," Nicole replied. She touched a button and the display changed to show a strange, ugly vessel that looked like it had been built from spare parts. "This is the Endeavor. formerly known as Prototype 7. It is equipped with an experimental jump drive that can transport it instantly from one location to another. Our plan is to use Endeavor to jump directly into the center of the enemy formation, right next to their command ships. The room fell silent as people understood what she was saying. We hit their leadership, Nicole continued. The Velthari have a very centralized command structure. All orders flow from the High Commander to the fleet. If we can kill Vorath and destroy his flagship, the rest of the fleet will be confused and leaderless. And while they are reorganizing, we attack, Admiral Kira Lawson added. Our main fleet will strike their flanks from 3 different directions at once. We focus on causing as much damage and confusion as possible. Dr. Samuel Green stood up. His voice was calm and steady. We will not destroy their entire fleet. That is not possible. But we do not need to. We need to make them decide that Earth is not worth the cost. We need to hurt them so badly that they choose to retreat rather than continue fighting. And if that does not work, Secretary General Daniel Murphy asked, if they decide to continue the attack despite their losses? The room became very quiet. Everyone knew about the Prometheus Protocol, though no one wanted to speak its name. Samuel met the Secretary General's eyes. Then we use our final option. But that is truly a last resort. We will exhaust every other possibility first. Captain Benjamin Torres stepped forward. He would be commanding the Endeavor on its mission into the heart of the enemy fleet. He knew that he and his crew might not survive, but he had volunteered anyway, along with 11 others who understood the risks. The Endeavor is ready, Benjamin reported. The crew has been trained. The jump drive has been tested on smaller scales. We believe it will work, but there is no guarantee. There is a chance we might die before we ever reach the enemy. Why are you doing this? Someone asked from the back of the room. Benjamin thought about the question for a moment. Because someone has to. Because if we do nothing, everyone dies anyway. At least this way, we have a chance. At least this way, we go down fighting. Lieutenant Diana Reyes was in the room as well. She had been selected to lead one of the fighter squadrons in the main assault. After the battle 2 weeks ago, she had become something of a hero. But she did not feel like a hero. She felt like a scared young woman who was probably going to die soon. But when she looked at the faces around her, she saw that everyone else was scared too. The difference was that they were all choosing to fight anyway. That night, people across Earth said goodbye to their families and friends. Some wrote letters. Some made videos. Some simply held their loved ones close and tried to memorize the feeling. Nicole Harris called her mother in Chicago. She did not tell her about the battle that was coming. She just listened to her mother talk about the weather and the neighbors and the small things that made up a normal life. When the call ended, Nicole sat in her quarters and cried quietly for a few minutes. Then she dried her eyes and went back to work. There was still much to do. In his secret room, Samuel Green reviewed the Prometheus Protocol one last time. He hoped with all his heart that they would never need it. But he was prepared to push the button if everything else failed. Some things were worse than death. Slavery was one of them. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere among them, the Velthari fleet waited, confident in their power, certain of their victory. They had no idea that the small blue world in front of them was about to teach them a lesson about humanity. A lesson written in fire and blood and the stubborn refusal to surrender. 5 days remained. The storm was gathering. And when it broke, the galaxy would never be the same. The morning of the deadline arrived with strange calm. Across Earth, people gathered with their families and watched the sky. Schools were closed. Offices were empty. The streets were quiet. 8 billion human beings waited together for the end of the world, or the beginning of something new. On board the Endeavor, Captain Benjamin Torres ran through his final checks. The ship hummed with energy, its experimental systems powered up and ready. His crew of 12 volunteers sat at their stations, their faces pale but determined. Lieutenant Commander Amy Lynn, his second-in-command, looked up from her console. "All systems are operational, Captain. The jump drive is charged and ready." Benjamin nodded. He thought about his wife and children back on Earth. He had recorded a message for them, telling them how much he loved them and how proud he was to serve. He hoped they would never have to watch it. He hoped he would be able to tell them in person when this was over. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Let them know we are ready." Deep underground, Commander Nicole Harris received the message. She picked up her communicator and spoke to Admiral Kira Lawson, who was commanding the main fleet from the carrier Independence. "Endeavor is ready," Nicole reported. "We can begin Operation Defiance on your order." "Then, let us begin," Kira replied. Her voice was steady despite the fear she felt. "Send the message." The transmission went out on all frequencies, broadcast to the Valkyrie fleet and to every human watching around the world. Secretary General Daniel Murphy delivered humanity's response to the alien ultimatum. His voice was calm and clear. To High Commander Varth and the Valkyrie Dominion, 30 days ago, you gave us a choice. Surrender or die. You expected us to submit like all the other species you have conquered. You expected us to accept our place as your slaves. He paused for a moment, letting his words sink in. You were wrong. We are the human race. We have conquered our own world. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We have split the atom and walked on our moon. We do not surrender. We do not submit. And today, we do not die quietly. This is Earth's answer. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Varth heard the message and laughed. Brave words from a doomed species. All ships, prepare for planetary bombardment. We will begin the destruction of their cities in 1 hour. He never got the chance. The Endeavor's jump drive activated. For one terrible moment, the ship seemed to stretch across infinity. Every atom of Benjamin's body screamed in protest as space folded around him. Colors that did not exist swirled through his vision. Time itself seemed to lose meaning. Then, suddenly, everything snapped back to normal. The Endeavor was floating directly in front of the Valkyrie flagship, less than a kilometer away. The massive alien vessel filled the viewing screen, its hull covered with weapons and sensor arrays. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing Benjamin had ever seen. Fire everything, he commanded. The Endeavor's weapons were crude by Valkyrie standards. But at this range, crude was enough. The first volley struck the flagship before its shields could fully activate. Explosions rippled across the black hull. The second volley punched through the weakened armor and reached the vital systems inside. The third volley hit the reactor core. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Vorith had just enough time to feel genuine terror. In his centuries of conquest, he had never been afraid. He had always been the predator, never the prey. But now, looking at the small, ugly human ship that had appeared from nowhere, he understood that he had made a fatal mistake. He had underestimated humanity. The flagship exploded in a ball of white fire. The blast was so powerful that it damaged the 2 other command ships nearby. In an instant, the leadership of the Valkyrie fleet was gone. Captain Torres watched the explosion through his viewing screen. Target destroyed. All stations, report damage. We took some debris hits, Amy Lynn reported. Hull integrity is at 70%. Jump drive is recharging. We cannot retreat yet. Then we keep fighting. The Endeavor turned toward the other command ships, its weapons firing continuously. It was a tiny vessel against massive warships, but size did not matter anymore. The humans had the element of surprise, and they intended to use it. Outside the command cluster, the main battle began. Admiral Lawson led the human fleet in a three-pronged attack on the Valkyrie flanks. Over 200 human ships, everything Earth had been able to build in 30 days, charged at an enemy that outnumbered them 10 to 1. But the Valkyrie were in chaos. Their commander was dead. Their communication networks were disrupted. Individual captains tried to take charge, but their orders conflicted with each other. Some ships moved forward. Others held position. A few even retreated. Lieutenant Diana Reyes led her fighter squadron into the confusion. Stay together, watch each other's backs, and do not stop moving. We are faster and more unpredictable than they are. Use that advantage. Her squadron dove into the enemy formation, firing at weapon emplacements and engine ports. The Valkyrie ships tried to track them, but the human fighters moved in patterns that their computers could not predict. Diana saw one of the large alien cruisers turn toward her, its weapons glowing with deadly energy. She pulled her fighter into a tight spiral, passing so close to the alien hull that she could see the marks and scratches on its surface. Behind her, the cruiser's weapons fired into empty space where she had been a moment before. Another human fighter came from the other side and put a missile directly into the cruiser's bridge. The massive ship shuddered and began to drift, its command crew dead. The battle lasted for 3 hours. It was chaos and fire and death. Human ships exploded. Alien ships exploded. The space around Earth was filled with debris and escape pods and the bodies of the fallen. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The Valkyrie had expected a quick surrender. They had expected to crush any resistance with overwhelming force. They had not expected to lose over 300 ships in a single battle. They had not expected their commander to die before the fighting even began. They had not expected the humans to keep attacking, even when all logic said they should retreat. Finally, after 3 hours of carnage, the surviving Valkyrie commanders made a decision. They had lost too much. This world was not worth the cost. The alien fleet began to retreat, pulling back toward the outer solar system. A few ships tried to continue fighting, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the humans who smelled victory. Transmission came from the largest surviving Valkyrie vessel. Human ships, we request negotiation. We are withdrawing from your system. We ask for safe passage. Admiral Lawson's response was simple. You may leave. If you return, there will be no negotiation. The Valkyrie left. On Earth, people watched the battle footage and wept with joy. Strangers hugged in the streets. Bells rang in churches. Fireworks exploded in every city. The human race had faced extinction and survived. Captain Benjamin Torres brought the damaged Endeavour back to Earth. The ship had taken heavy damage during the battle, but it had survived, and so had most of the crew. When they landed, they were greeted as heroes, but Benjamin did not feel like a hero. He felt tired and grateful and overwhelmed. He had done what needed to be done. That was all. Lieutenant Diana Reyes landed her fighter and climbed out of the cockpit. Her squadron had lost 4 pilots during the battle. She would remember their names for the rest of her life. But she would also remember the moment when the alien fleet turned and ran. When humanity proved that it would not go quietly into the night. In his secret room, Dr. Samuel Green quietly filed away the Prometheus Protocol. The weapon that would have destroyed Earth and everyone on it was no longer needed. He had hoped it would never be used, and his hope had been answered. Commander Nicole Harris found him sitting alone, staring at the wall. Will they come back? She asked. Samuel considered the question. Perhaps, but they will come knowing what we are now. They will come knowing that humans do not surrender, do not submit, and do not die quietly. Whatever comes next, the galaxy knows the truth about humanity. Outside, the sun was setting over the Nevada desert. The sky was painted with red and orange and gold, the same colors that had filled the space around Earth during the battle. Nicole watched the sunset and thought about everything that had happened. 30 days ago, aliens had threatened to destroy their world. Today, those aliens were running away. Nicole smiled. Humanity had answered the threat of annihilation with defiance and courage. They had proven that even the smallest world could stand against the mightiest empire. If its people refused to give up, the stars were waiting. There would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, more impossible odds to overcome. But humanity would face them together, as they had faced this one. They had threatened Earth with annihilation. The reply had sent their Armada running, and the galaxy would never forget it.